Hello, my friends. Today we're learning about Mציעא Daf Tzadik Beis. The learning today is the success and the refuahs all the soldiers who are fighting in Gaza. I'm going to start from the Mishnah. 5 lines down. Says a Mishnah: Oichel poyel, a worker who's working in the field, and we said that he's allowed to eat. He's allowed to eat even a kishus, afilu bedina, even if this kishus is so expensive. This vegetable that's worth a dinner, he's allowed to eat it. Kuiseves or date, afilu bedina, even if it's worth a dinner, the kuiseves that he's eating. Rabelova chasmo, no. Lo yoichal poel yese as choroi. If he's getting paid, let's say, £100 a day, he's not allowed to eat more than his wages. Up to his wages, he's allowed to eat. The Chacham return and Chacham say it's mutter. The Gemara is going to ask what's the difference between Tanakama and Chachamim. It's the same din. Says the Mishnah, we teach him, he's allowed to eat as much as he wants, but we teach him, we tell him, listen, if you're going to eat too much, no one's going to take you to work anymore because it's not worth it for them. Therefore, be careful how much you eat. More the Eitz Toiva. Says the Gemara, Chachamim Ainu Tanakama, what's the difference between the racial Tanakama of the Mishnah who says you're allowed to eat and Chachamim who are matir? What's the difference? So now the Gemara is going to say 3 Turuts to understand the difference between them. Ikid Beinayu, the first pshat is that the difference between Tanakama and Chachamim, Avol Melamdim. The end part of the Mishnah of that you teach him not to eat too much because then no one's going to take him for work. The Tanakama less Melamdim. Tanakama doesn't told you tell him you're allowed to eat as much as you want and you don't give him any tips. The Rabbanon in the Sefer of the Mishnah is lehu Melamdim. They say, yeah, you can eat as much as you want, but Rabbanon say you have to give him a good tip to tell him don't eat too much because then they won't take you for work. Iboy Seima, the second understanding the difference between Tanakama and Chachomim, Ike Benayu, the difference between them is the Rav Asi. The din of Rav Asi, the Omar Rav Asi. Rav Asi says 2 dinim. Afilu lo ischora elo liftzer eshkol echod. Reuven told Shimon, can you please, I want you to cut off 1 grape off the tree. Don't know how you say eshkol of grapes in English, but 1 eshkol of grapes from the tree. Oichloi, that actual eshkol, he could eat it, and the balabais doesn't get anything because it's all eaten, and there's no problem. That's din number 1 of Rav Asi. Ba'amar Rav Asi, and says Rav Asi another din. Afilu lo botzar ela eshkol echod oichloi. Another din that his job is to take off the grapes off the tree, and he's starting his job, and he's at the first grapes that he's taking off the tree. That first grapes that he takes off, already that he could eat. And in a second we're going to see why does Rav Asi have to tell you these 2 dinim who could learn one from each other. But we said that the Machlokes Tanakama and Chachomim, it depends on the din of Rav Asi. So pshat is that Tanakama holds that like Rav Asi. And when it says Poyel Oichel Kishus, that even if that's the only thing that he was rented to do, to take that kishus, he's allowed to eat it. And Chachomim say matirim, Chachomim say, and then Rabbi Loza Chisma comes and says that no, you're not allowed Yesim Eschoro. It doesn't matter if he's rented for 1 kishus or for many kishuim. And Chachomim say no, we matter. If he was rented for lots of kishuim, he's allowed to eat kishuim more than the value of his work. But if it's only for 1 kishu that he was rented to do his job, he's not allowed to eat that. And that's the difference between Tanakama and Chachomim. When you're rented only for 1 kishus, are you allowed to eat it or not? Do we hold the Rav Asi or not? Now the Gemara is going to explain why did the Rav Asi need to tell you these 2 dinim, you can learn them one from each other. It's richa, and we need them both. If you tell me only the first din, that he was rented, he was hired to take only 1 grape off the tree that he's allowed to eat it, you'd say mishum deloy ika lemeisa lekelev shel balabais, because there's only 1 grape. If I want to eat it, there's no putting into kelev shel balabais. So therefore I'm allowed to eat it, even though I won't put in kelev shel balabais, because if I put into kelev shel balabais, I can't eat it. Aval heicha de ika lemeisa lekelev shel balabais, in a case where he was hired to do a full day's work of taking off grapes, I might have thought, first, the first grapes you take off the tree, put it in the basket of balabais, and only afterwards you should eat it. And that's why we needed the chiddush of the second case, that even though that he's hired for a full day, the first grapes he takes off the tree, he could eat them. If you tell me only the second din, you'd say only over there. Why? If only over there the pearl is allowed to eat the first grapes, because the second grapes he'll put into the basket of balabais. In the other first case where he was hired only to take off one grape off the tree, maybe he's not allowed to eat it, because at the end of the day, if he's going to eat it, he won't be noisen bekelev shel balabais tzricha. That's why we need the two dinim of Rav Asi. Another third explanation, what the difference between Tanekama and Chachomim in the Mishnah. The difference is the din of Rav, the Omar Rav, Motzosi, I found Megillah Storim. Megillah Storim, it was in those days, it was the beginning of the days where they'd write down the Torah, because until the Mishnayos, the Torah, when you'd come into a Jewish home, a Jewish shul, all you'd find is a Tanakh, nothing else, because you're not allowed to write the Torah. And then they started to write the Mishnayos. And the days of Rav, they still didn't really write Divrei Torah. And if someone wanted to remember something, you'd write it down and hide it. So he found one of this cloth that someone hid, in the Beis Medrash of Rav Chia, and it said in it, Isi ben Yehuda Isi ben Yehuda says, it says in the Apostle, Kisovoi bekerem riecho, and we say, Befias kol odom hakosim medaba. It's not talking about until now, like we learned that it's talking about Poyel who's working, that he's allowed to eat. No, anyone's allowed to go into someone else's field and eat the fruit. Because it says, Kisovoi bekerem riecho, it doesn't say Poyel. Rav, and Rav said on this, L'shovak isi chaya likol bria. You can't live a life like this. Why will anyone grow grapes if everyone could eat it? It's like a shemitah, 7 years long, all life long. How could you live like that if anyone could eat the fruit of your tree? And Omar Rav Ashi, Amrisa l'shmaitzek made Rav Kahana. I said this din of isi in front of Rav Kahana, and I'm going to be gurus like the Bach. Omar Li, and Rav Kahana told me, Dilma, maybe this din of isi is not talking about that anyone's allowed to go into someone else's field and eat. It's talking about boisim besudosom the of the v'achlu. It means that anyone could go to someone else's field, help him with his job that he needs to do there to cut off the grapes and eat. Even if the balabais never hired him, he could decide himself, I'm going to help balabais and then I'm going to eat grapes while I do the job. Therefore, it's not anyone could do it. While you're doing the job on your own accord, you could eat. And Omar Li and Rav said that even that it's not about any person, a person, a owner of the vineyard that prefers to rent workers, and to cut off the fruit, to pick the fruit from his paradise. And not that anyone who wants could just come in, do some work and eat. So Isi ben Yehuda's din is still a big chiddush. In our Mishnah it says, Tanekama says, Oyechel poyel kishus afilu bedina. So Tanekama holds, who's allowed to eat? Only a poyel, not someone who just decides he wants to be a poyel on his own accord. And that means Tanekama doesn't hold of Isi ben Yehuda. And then Chachomim, who say Chachom Maturim, they hold no, even someone on his own accord could go and do work in the field and eat pears. And that is the third way of understanding the machloikes between Tanekama and Chachomim. Iboilehu, said the Gemara. Now the Gemara until the next Mishnah is going to discuss the Shaila. Because we know that Poyel is allowed to eat fruit while he's working. We said it depends when, etc. But in certain circumstances he's allowed. So the Gemara has a Shaila over here, and I'm going to explain a bit like Tosfos explains the Shaila. When the Torah's Mechadesh, our Poyel could eat, under which Geder will the Torah Mechadesh it? Is it Ke'ilu the Torah says not only you get paid wherever you agreed on, I'm saying that the owner also has to give you extra pay. And what's the extra pay? That you're allowed to eat fruit. And it's as if he agreed with you, the owner, to say, I'm giving you extra fruit, extra wages that you're allowed to eat these fruit when you work in the field. That's pshat number one. Pshat number two is no. That Hashem said, like Minas Chasodim, that a poyel is allowed to eat, and it only really becomes him, his chus, once it's in his mouth. It's not pshat that's like extra wages. It's like matnas kona type of thing, the matnas aniyim. So that's the Gemara Shaila, and it's going to discuss and try bringing rayas from many places. We have a Shaila, Bnei Yeshiva asked a Shaila, Poil Mishlo Yoichel, is it like extra wages that Hashem gave him? Oy Mishel Shemaim Yoichel, oh, it's like Matnas Anim that he gets from Shemaim to eat. The Ma'inaf Gemina, what's the difference? La Alocha, the Oma in a case where he said, Nuli Ishti Ubonai, I don't want to eat it, I want to give it to my kid, to my wife or kids. If it's a din that it's like extra wages, we could say he wants his wages to go to someone else. If it's like matnas anim, the Torah is mechadish, a person who works in the field has a schus to eat. But to give that schus over to his wife or his kids, he doesn't have a right to force the balabais to agree to that. What's the din? Telling more Toshma, come and listen. We learned in our Mishnah, Oichel poel kishus v'afilu bedina koiseves v'afilu bedina. Iomat mishlo oichel. If it's extra wages, it doesn't make sense. Oiger bedanka, he's getting his wages daily, or danka is a small amount. I think it's a sixth. Ochil bezuza, and then he could have extra wages on top of that. Hashem was mezaka to him. He could eat a whole zuz. It makes no sense. Says the Gemara, okay, ve'elomai, so what are you going to tell me? Mishel Shomayim Oichel, that's like Matnas Anim. So if at the end of the day, Oiger Berdanka, his wages that was agreed on is a small amount, Ochel Bezuza, and he's eating his Matnas Anim are so big that he could eat a whole zuz, he could eat a koseves, even bedina. Elomai Eslemeima, what are you going to explain me about that? Rachmana Zochele, that's not something that makes sense. The Torah said that we mezaki Matnas Anim, that you could eat as much as you want, even much more than your wages. Ochenami, even also now that we want to say that it's Mishlo Yoichel, Rachmana Zochele, the wages are small, but you could eat a lot. The Torah said that on top of the wages, wherever they are, you could eat as much as you want. And it's really like wages, but really you could eat as much as you want. So we don't have no raya from our Mishnah. Toshma, I'll bring you a raya from another pot. It says, Rabbi Lozoch, Chasmo Oimer, Lo Yoichal Poel Yoiser Aschoro, he's not allowed to, a Poel is not allowed to eat more than his wages. The Chachom Matir Chachom say it's mutter. Maila Bokum Ifligi, Lechor, the Machloikis between Rabbi Lozoch, Chasmo, and Chachomim is as follows. The Marasova Mishlo Yoichel. That Rabbi Lozoch Chismo holds that it's like wages, and it doesn't make sense that she gets wages more than the Ikka, if the actual Tosefes of wages is more than the Ikka, makes no sense, and that's why he could eat maximum like his wages. Umasov and Chachomim hold Mishel Shomayim Oichel, it's like Matnas Anim, and there's no limit in it. No, the Kula Alma we could say Mishel Oichel, everyone agrees that it's like extra wages. V'hocha, what the Machloikis between Rabbi Lozoch Chisma and Chachomim, Beken Nafshecho Komifligi. The Machloikis is to darshan the word of the pasuk that says Kenafshecho. Marasovar Eblozo Chisma holds Kenafshecho that says in the pasuk B'Dover Shemoise Nafshoi Olov. That means when a person goes to work and he's willing to climb the fig tree to take off figs, he's risking his life. Why is he doing it? To get some wage. So Kenafshecho, the amount you're willing to risk your life for, that means the wages that you got, that's the amount you're allowed to eat. And therefore only until your wages. That's Rabbi Lozoch Chisma Shito. Masov and Chachomim hold Kenafshecho. A different drasha, man nafshecho im chosamto potter. Like if I'm working in my own field, I'm not mechuyev to eat, I could not eat. Af poel im chosamto potter, if I agreed with the poel that he's not gonna eat, and I'm gonna give him let's say money instead, I'm not chayev, I'm potter. So it's a whole different drasha from kenafshecho, nothing to do with other chisma. So if you don't have a drasha, how much could you eat? However much you want. Toshma, come and listen. Nother who's not allowed to eat grapes. He said, I can't eat, please give it to my wife and kids. My schus to eat. We don't listen to him. If you're going to tell me that a person who's eating it's like extra wages, why can't he say I want to give it to my wife and kids? It's extra wages I get. Says the Gemara, the whole different reason why not. Mishum, because lech, go, amrinan, we say to Nazira, schor lekarma lo tikrav. It's a saying, like a saying in Aramaic, saying that a Nazir who's not allowed to drink wine and eat grapes, we tell him, go around a long way and don't even go past the vineyard because you might be tempted to eat a grape. Since you acid yourself on it, keep away very far. Therefore, really, maybe it could be Mishlo Yoichel and he could give you wife and kids, but because he's another, we punish him type of thing, that he shouldn't able to give to his wife and kids. They shouldn't work in a vineyard because he could be Nichshal and eat grapes. Toshma said the Gemara, come and listen. Poyel Shormar, a worker who said, "Nu leishtu bonai, give the fruit to my wife and kids." Ain't shomlo, we don't listen to him. V'yomat mishlo yoichel, if it's like extra wages that were agreed on, am I ain't shomlo? Why don't we listen to him? Chora clear raya, that's mishlo shomayim yoichel. So the Gemara, my poyel nazir. When we say a poil over here, it means a nazir. It doesn't mean a normal poil, and it's because before what we said, because we tell a nazir keep away from the vineyard. Practically more of Tanya nazir or Tanya poil. In one bright it said nazir, in one bright it says poil, so it must be a poil is no nazir, and therefore if it's a poil we have a raya. So the Gemara, no. All these two brises were written one next to each other. They're going to say, oh, why did it change? And here called him a nazir and here called a poil. It's coming to tell you that a poil means literally a worker, not a nazir. No, these brises are not written together, and therefore that in one brise it says nazir and the other one poil, there's no raya. It could be the poil means a nazir, and it didn't change because there's no brise next to it of talking about nazir, and therefore we don't have no raya from the brise of poil because we could explain it's talking about nazir. Toshma, come and listen. Minayin the poil. How do we know that a worker? Sha'amrat nule ishtiu bona. He said, I want to give the fruit to my wife and kids. She'in shoimloi. They don't listen to him. Shenemra, because I'm telling the pasuk, vel kulecha lo titen. They shouldn't put it in your basket. And this is considered like putting in your basket. V'chit tzuluchara clear raya that you're not allowed to give your wife and kids. V'chitei ochinami. And if you're going to tell me over here, it's talking about a nazir as well. Ochinami nazir. And the reason is because leich. If so, mishum el kelecha lo titen. The reason it said in the brayso, why not? Because el kelecha lo titen. The reason should be mishum leich amrin nezirahu, and not because el kelecha lo titen. Elomai, it's a normal poel, and we could see a poel can't give his wife and kids. Says the Gemara, no, really, it's talking about nazir, and we can explain why the tam and eino chinami. Says the Gemara, eino chinami. Really, it's because of leich. I did the ktoni lo beloshon poel, and since we called the nazir poel. We also bring a pasuk of poil, but really the dinner is really we're talking about nazir, and really we are talking, and the issa is because leich, not because of pasuk we brought, and it's very schwer to say this teretz if you common sense, because why are you saying poil if you need a nazir? Why are you bringing the wrong pasuk? Getting everything mixed up. But the Gemara is happy with this dichui. Toshma, come and listen, I bring you another raya. Someone who hired a worker to dry up the figs in the field. So the Gemara Tzadik, base someone's base, Aryeh oichelu potter. He's allowed to eat while he's doing the work, and he's potter for Maisa, even though that normally Maisa is chayav already before that stage. But in a case where the minig is to dry it up, and so then it's not Mar Melocha yet, and therefore it's only Chayiv Maisa in a later stage, and therefore the pearl is allowed to eat. If the worker told them, the boss, on condition that I'm going to eat and my kid's going to eat, or that my kid's going to eat instead of me, Tosfos explains, Hu oichel upota. He's allowed to eat and he's potter from maestris, because it's like mekach, because he agreed his son's not going to eat. Said the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that it's your extra wages, Hashem was mezaki you, why is he b'noi chayv b'maisa? L'chorei should be potter b'maisa, because it's like his wages, and he's allowed to give his wages to his son. Since he agreed it with the balabais, it looks like mekach, and by mekach we know that even if lo nigmor melachto lemaisa, mekach is koiveh lemaisa, and therefore the son has to give maisa before he eats, and he's not allowed to eat straight away. So we don't have a raya from here. Toshmar, bring your raya from someone else. Someone who hired a worker to work in the Netter Ravai. Netter Ravai is a fourth year, but a new field. The din is you're not allowed to eat the fruit only if you appointed it. So someone hired poelim and to work in a field of Netter Ravai. They should not eat But if he never let them know before that it's netarevai, he has to redeem these fruit and he gives them to eat. If the whole, it's like matnas anim, amai poidu machilom, isur lo zochulu rachmana. Why am I chayav to redeem these fruit and feed it to them if they never knew? The Torah gives you matnas anim. When did the Torah give you these matnas anim? When it's mutter to eat it. But here it's not Torah, I'm not chayav. The Torah is not mezakeh. If it's mishaloi, it's as if he agreed on it before. So if you never told them clearly, so it's like you chayav to give it to them. And you have to be poido machilom. But if it's mishal shemaim, it's like matnas anim. In such a case, there's no matnas anim because it's not a rabbi. Why is it my business? Why do I have to be poido machilom? So the Gemara hasa mishum de mechzik mekach toos. So the Gemara over there, it looks like mekach toos because they thought they'll be allowed to eat it, and they never knew it's netarevai. And even though that's only matnas anim from Hashem, but still they thought they're going to have these matnas anim, and suddenly they come to the field the next day to work, and now they're not allowed to eat. It looks like a mekach toos. That's why mechuyev to poideu ma'achile. So the Gemara ima Seifa. Let me bring you a raya from the Seifa. It said nitparsu igulov. Someone had these igule dveila. It's like figs are stuck together, and it's already chai b'maisa, but they got unstuck. They separated. That's a case number one. Niftichu chav Yosef. He had barrels that were closed already of wine, and now they opened, and now he wants a worker to hire a worker to make them into the figs into these round circles that stuck together again, and the wine to close the barrels. So says the Mishnah, says over there, it says, Aryeh elu lo yochelu. They're not allowed to eat because it's already chayav b'maisa. If you never let them know that it's already chayav b'maisa, Maisa, he has to be Maisa umachilom and feed them. If you're going to tell me that's the whole chiyuv of eating it, it's like matnas anim, amai Maisa umachilom, why is it chiyuv to give Maisa and feed them? Isur lo zochelu rachmana, like we said before. The Torah wasn't mezakeh to him isurim. Only something that's mutar, and this is also it's chayv Maisa, so you can't eat. Sorry, why do I have to be Maisa it? If you're going to tell me like what we said before in the case of netarevai mishum de mechzik mekach toos, because it looks like a mistake because these people never knew that it's chayv b'maisa already. Bishleim unispar sorgulo, very good in the case where the gulet vela opened and separated, and you hired the worker to put them into circles again. Mechzik mekach toos, very good. You could say it looks like a mistake. Elo niftichu chav Yosef, in the case where the wine opened, my mekach toosika, what mistake is there over here? Made yoda the itbule lemaisa, since when the boss went to the workers and hired them to close his wine, in that stage is to close his barrels, and that stage it's chai b'maisa. So what mekach tos is it? For sure, there's no mekach tos over here. The worker knows that it's chai b'maisa already. So the Gemara Omar of Sheishes. It's talking about where the wine opened, and doesn't mean that it's still in the barrel, and they fell back into the bur where the wine sits at the beginning. So the worker thinks that in that stage it's not chayav ma'isa yet. It doesn't know they used to be in a barrel. Frag the Gemara Vatanya, we learned in the Brisa Yain, when is the chayav ma'isa mishiyorad lebur? Already when it's in the bur, it's chayav ma'isa. So when he hired the workers to come work in the bur to take the wine out, he should know it's chayav ma'isa. So the Gemara Rabbi Akiva, it's like Rabbi Akiva who argues and says, Doma misheikve. Misheikve means that on the bur of the wine, the vagin, that the leftovers of pieces of the peel and everything float, and he separated it. And when he separated that, only then it's chai b'maisa. So when he hired them for taking the wine out of the bur, they never knew it was ikve yet, and that's why it has to be maisa machilom. The workers tell the boss, I never knew that it was chai b'maisa yet. So the Gemara, the boss could tell his workers, you should have thought maybe it was done already. Maybe they took out the pieces already, and it's already chai b'maisa. You didn't know if they did or not. You had to take in condition. And if it's so important to you, you should have asked me before. Why are you not asking me? Obviously, you knew that you might not drink wine when you're doing this job, so I'm not mechuyev. So the Gemara Ba'asra, we talk about in a place, the one who puts the wine into the barrel, He's the one who takes out the what's float, the pieces that float on top of the wine. And therefore, when someone was hired, this poil was hired to do the job of taking the wine out of the bur, he was sure that he also has to first be makfit, and that means it's not chayv b'maisa yet because the fish is Rabbi Akiva, and therefore he thought he's going to drink, and he never knew that it was already in the barrel and it fell back into the bur, and therefore he has to be maisa or machilon. Something more about Ashton, Tony Rav Zvid B'der Rabbi Oishia. Now that Rav Zvid learned the Machloitis Rav Akiva and Tanakama differently when is Yain Chai B'maisa, Yain Mishir Lapor B'ikva, that the Tanakama holds, like what Rabbi Akiva held before, that only when the wine's in the bar and they separated what floats on top, only then it's Chai B'maisa. And Rabbi Akiva Oimu Mishi Ishle B'chavyois, that you only Chai B'maisa in a later stage, after you put it in the barrel, and then it bubbles a little bit, and then more pieces go to the top, and then you take those pieces out, and only when you take those pieces out, only then it's chai b'maisa. Afilu tema, we could say sheloi niftechu chaviyos in the bur. It's not with the doichak that we said before, that the barrel's open and it fell back into the bur. No, the barrel's just open and it never fell into the bur. The Amrulei, the workers will tell the Balabais, and Demashli, we never knew that the pieces were taken out already. We thought it's just in the barrel and the pieces were not taken out, and it's not chai b'maisa, and we're allowed to drink. Frank the Gemara, what we said before, the boss should tell the workers, you should have be choishesh. Maybe I told you I'm renting you, I'm hiring you to close the barrels. You should be choishesh, dima mashli. Maybe this job was done already of separating the pieces on top, and therefore it's chai b'maisa, and therefore you can't drink. So the Gemara ba'asru, we told him in a place, the Shorik, the one who closes the barrels, Mashli, he's the one who separates before he closes the barrel those pieces from on top of the wine, and therefore they thought if we hired to close the wine, they never knew it was already closed and open. They think, we're gonna first take off the pieces, and it's not chai b'maisa only until that stage, and we could drink, and only afterwards we're gonna close the barrel. And they never knew that it will be that it's already chai b'maisa. That's why it has to be maisa and given to drink. So we don't have a raya. Says the Gemara, Toshma, I'll bring you a raya from somewhere else. It says koitzitz. A person could tell a worker could tell the boss, you're paying me £100 a day, and I'm allowed to eat as many figs as I want. I'm not going to eat any figs, and give me £10 extra. That means koitzitz. Alidei bnoyu bitu agdoilim, or his old son or old daughter over bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah working, he could also agree with balabais that they're going to do the job, not eat the fruit and get extra money. Alidei avdoi b'shivchosei agdoilim, his eved that's over bar mitzvah, he's also allowed to agree with balabais that he won't eat and he's going to get the money instead. Validei ishto, and also his wife, because they have das to agree to this. All these people have avol eino koitzitz. This Mishnah that comes in Tzadik Gimel says, eino koitzitz lo alidei bnoi bitu aktanim. If you son or daughter under bar mitzvah or bas mitzvah doing a job, he's not allowed to agree with balabais that he won't eat and he's gonna get extra money. No on your slaves who are under bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, and not also if your animal is going to work for someone, you're not allowed to say pay me extra and don't let him eat when he's doing the threshold. Because they don't have das. Said the Gemara, the Bnei Yeshiva who wanted to bring a raya from here, they thought it's talking about it's talking about where the father is feeding these kids of his food. He's giving them food every day. And therefore, if you're going to tell me that it's like matnas anim mishumochein koitzet, that's why he can't koitzet on his bnoi bitu aktanim, because it's a matnas anim to them. He can't take it away from them. But if you're going to tell me it's like extra wages, like their wages, because he's feeding them goes to him, so also the extra wages should go to the father. So why can't he be koitzet ubnoi bitu aktanim? Elomai, we could see it's mishal shamayim oichel. So the Gemara, no. It's somehow where he's not feeding his kids, and therefore what they work doesn't belong to him. So the Gemara, Yochi, if so, there is no malem no mezoines gdoilim nami. How could he be koitzet on his bnoi bitu agdoilim? What they work has nothing to do with him. He's not feeding them. So the Gemara, gdoilim yadi v'komachli. The gdoilim, the big kids, know that the father was koitzet and agreed with the boss to get extra money and not eat, and they agreed to it, and they were moichel, and they have a koach to be moichel because the gdoilim. Says the Gemara of Hotana de Rabbi Oishia. In Rabbi Oishia's brayse it says a bit different. It says koitzitz odom alidei atzmo v'alidei ishtoi. they allowed to be koitzet. That means to agree with Balabayas on an extra payment instead of eating if he's doing the job or his wife's doing his job. But not if your behemoth is going to do a job, you're not allowed to agree to get paid extra and the behemoth won't eat. It's mutter to do alidei bnoi bitu agdoilim. You could be koitzet. Avaloi alidei bnoi bitu aktanim, but you're not allowed to be koitzet bnoi bitu aktanim. Till here, the price of our Aryeh is exactly like the Mishnah from Tzadik Gimel Amud Aleph that we just brought. Now this is where he comes and says something a bit different. But his slaves, male or female, he's allowed to be koitzet bein gdoilim, bein ktanim. Also, it doesn't matter if they're over bar mitzvah, doesn't matter if they're under bar mitzvah, and that's not like the Mishnah that we said, because we said that avodim ktanim, you can't be koitzet. My love, idi vidi b'malem lemezonis. L'chor bein the Mishnah, bein this price of Rabbi Ishia, or talking about where the father's feeding these kids of his. This is a machloikes. The Marasovar Mishloi Oichel. One holds that Mishloi Oichel, and therefore it's like wages, and therefore you could be koitzet even to avdoi v'shivchoso yaktanim. You could be koitzet because it's like wages. That's the brisa. Masov and the Mishnah holds Mishel Shemaim Oichel. That's like matnasanim, and you can't take away these matnasanim from the evet and ashivcha ktano. And this is a machlok between the Mishnah and the Brisa, our Shaila. Says the Gemara, the Kula Alma Mishloi Oichel. Really, everyone holds that it's Mishloi Oichel, it's like extra wages. Veloi Kashia. And what chat the difference of the Brisa and the Mishnah? That in the Brisa it says you could be koitzet alidei abdei v'shivchos aktanim, and the Mishnah it says you can't. Kan b'she'ein ma'aleh lemezonis. In the Mishnah where you're not allowed to do it is talking about where he's not feeding this evet, and therefore if he's not feeding this evet, he doesn't get their wages, and if he's not getting their wages, so if he's not getting their wages, he can't be koitzet. Brisa and the Brisa b'maleh lemezonis is talking about where he is feeding this evet, and therefore the wages is his. And since Mishloi Oichel, he could take the wages to himself. How did he explain it? It's talking about where he is giving them food and supplying them food every day. If so, why in the Brisa it says that ktanim, it says avodim ktanim you can, but b'noi bita ktanim is forbidden. Why? Ktanim naminei kitzlu. It's Mishloi Oichel. It's like wages. Why? And the wages belong to me because I'm feeding my kids. So why shouldn't I be koitzet on b'noi bita ktanim? So the Gemara, tzarayu b'noi bita ktanim lo yizochel l'rachmana. The whole schos that you get the wages of your kids are the wages, but not you can't put them into tsar. And this kid who's under bar mitzvah, this girl who's under bas mitzvah, is doing work in the field and she can't eat from the fruit, that's tsar. The tsar doesn't have a schus on it. It's very good he has a schus on this extra wages, but there's another point to be a tsar, and on that he doesn't have a schus, and that's why he can't be koitzet and b'noi bita aktanim. How did he explain our Mishnah? It's somehow where the father is not feeding this slave. That's very good. To the shita that the master can't tell a slave, I'm not feeding you and you still have to work with me, and I don't know how you're going to do extra work on the side. He can't do that. That means if you give him food, he gets wages, he works for you. If you don't give him food, he doesn't work for you. So it works in very good. But if the other shitta, the master could tell his slave, work with me, I'm not feeding you, go collect money to eat. So, Michael and Meima, what chat in the Mishnah? Why by Avdoi v'shivchos aktanim? Why can't you be koitzet? The wages belong to him, even though they're not giving them a zoinus. So the Gemara, you know what? I'll tell you a different chat. Elo idi v'idi b'she'ein malenu mezoinus. Bein the Mishnah, bein the Brisa is talking about where he's not feeding his avodim. Uba'aplig, and this is the machloikes. The Ma'asov Ayochel, the Brisa who says that you can take the koitzet alidoyo abdu v'shivchos aktanim holds yochel, a master could tell his eved, I'm not supplying you food and you still have to do the work for me, and therefore the wages belong to the master, and therefore he could be koitzet on abdu v'shivchos aktanim. U'ma'asov, our Mishnah holds, ein yochel, you can't say to your slave, I'm not feeding you and your work still goes to me. Very good. Said the Gemara of Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan who holds that the master could tell his slave, work and I'm getting your and I'm not feeding you and you still have to work for me. Shovik masnisin v'ovid kebraisa says Rabbi Yochanan going to fit in only like the brisa because that shit is a brisa the way we're explaining now. If you're the Mishnah, you can't be koitzet alavdoi v'shivchos aktanim. Why? Because ein yochol larav lo imaleh v'dasei mivein is on chos. It's not like Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is going to be like a brisa, not like the Mishnah. That's not very good. Says the Gemara, Elo the kula alma mishal shomayim oichel. Everyone hold that being the brisa, being the Mishnah hold that it's like matnas anim. V'lo imotzi kotzitz, and you're not allowed to take away from avdoi v'shvchosei yaktanim the work. That means you're not allowed to be kotzitz, that they're not allowed to eat the fruit. Oh, my kotzitz domar Rabbi Yishel. Rabbi Yishel said that alidei avdoi v'shvchosei yaktanim you're all allowed to be kotzitz. Now you're saying everyone holds you're not allowed to be kotzitz. What's going on? So the Gemara, my kotzitz domar Rabbi Yishel. What does that mean? Mizoinos. It means that he could feed them extra before they start the job, so therefore they won't eat on the job. And then if they won't eat on the job, he could get extra paid from balabais for that. But it doesn't mean you could force them not to eat while they're doing the job. No, you can't force them. Said the Gemara, in the Brisa of Roshi, it says that for your animal, you're not allowed to do that. Why not? We learned early on that you're allowed to feed the behemoth a lot of cheap food before he goes to do the job, that when he goes to do the job, he'll eat less. So if this were Rabbi means to be koitzitz, to give food before, also to the behemoth you're allowed to give food before that shouldn't eat a lot. Why did it say in the Brisa that the behemoth is forbidden? It must be that Rabbi means nakutz, like we learned until now, to tell the balabais, he's not going to work, he's not going to eat, and I want extra payment. It doesn't mean to give them, to stuff them up before. So the Gemara, we're going back to what we said at the beginning. The Mishnah holds that, the Brisa holds it's like extra wages, and that's why you can be koitzitz and avdoi b'shivchosei aktanim. That's pshat in the Brisa. Umasova and the Mishnah mishal shomayim oichel, it's like matnas anim, and therefore avdoi b'shivchosei aktanim you have no right to be koitzitz on their matanas anim that they get from Shomayim. Shkoyach.